Massachusetts has already legalized same-sex marriage. I never heard about it until California is now having this issue with Proposition 8.
In some places, you have courts that are making judicial decisions that are impacting what takes place within a particular state. What's happening in California is that the citizens of the state, a majority indicated that they wanted marriage defined as between a man and a woman. The courts in California overturned that, so now it's going back for the people to express their point of view. Should it be between a man and a woman, or should it be between various types of partners in relationships? Please.
Bednar, I think a lot of people view the church's stance on this issue as an intolerant stance and basically labeling our views as immoral when we're really taking a stance for morality. How do we address that argument?
If tolerance is the premise, then it's not a one-way tolerance, nor is it a tyranny of tolerance. It goes both ways. And people can talk, they can appreciate each other, and they can have divergent and very different points of view, and they can still get along, and they can even still love each other. One of the things that can occur over time is that if marriage is defined as a relationship between two of the same gender, there can be a decreasing tolerance for our beliefs as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This very label of bigotry from people who don't want to be labeled would likely be used more frequently and with even greater intensity. So one of the potential consequences growing out of this is that we may find a decreasingly tolerant environment for our beliefs as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I'm almost 19, I'm not married, and I don't have any kids. So what effect does this have personally for me? And
people will say, well, all we want is our opportunity. It has no effect on you. But there are people who push at the edges of what is legally allowable, and they use the courts to try to make additional progress for their particular point of view. Therefore, if you have a church and it does not recognize same-gender marriage, that's discriminatory, and you should not be allowed to do that. It is not just wild and crazy to suggest that there could be sanctions against the teaching of our doctrine because we focus on marriage between a man and a woman and would not place on equal standing marriage between a man and a man or a woman and a woman behavior.
My understanding of Prop 8 is that it's strictly about language, that marriage, the definition of marriage. So what would be the impact on the homosexual population if it passed or if it didn't pass?
Well, in California, same-gender couples have a variety of protected rights. So they don't lose anything if this particular proposition goes down. It's not as though they have rights or responsibilities or benefits that will be removed. This is simply an attempt to have the definition of marriage expanded to include same-gender couples. But they would lose nothing.
And they don't get any new rights from this at all. It's just the title that they're given if Prop 8 does not pass.
Well, what you do is you redefine marriage.
Yeah.
And then the uncertainty is what happens is people begin to push the limits of that new definition. That's the uncertainty that poses a real risk.
So if it wasn't to pass, like, would the ability for us to, I guess, to live our religion or to preach our religion, could we not do that anymore?
Yeah, that's why I use the concept of the tyranny of tolerance.
Right.
It seems to be tolerant, but it only goes in one direction.
Right.
So you're going to have the possibility of inevitable clashes between religious liberty and free speech. And if your religious doctrine is such that you believe marriage between a man and a woman is the only definition of marriage, then that smacks up against free speech. Because if marriage is defined in a more broad way between members of the same gender, then you can't talk about that. Now, I'm not suggesting that in one fell swoop that's what happens.
Right.
But if you throw a rock in a pond, the ripples extend out for a very long way. This argument is not just about the rock hitting the water and the initial ripple. You have to also consider the extended ripples over time. And you get some sense of what can happen by looking in other places, in other countries, where same-gender marriage has been adopted legally, and you begin to see some of those potential ripples.
So what would the consequences be to the children?
Well, let's say, for example, that if same-gender marriage becomes legally the norm, then it's pretty clear that you're going to have to treat equally in public school curriculum various forms of marriage relationships. Heterosexual marriage and homosexual marriage would have to be treated on equal footing. So what you then will have is an environment where children coming from your home, where you believe that marriage between a man and a woman is ordained of God, and that the family is central to the Father's plan for the divine destiny of His children, your children will go to school. Those will be placed on equal footing. That to me is a very troubling and uncertain consequence of what we're talking about. And that would be infused into the school curriculum, would be mandated.
So I have a question. So you've been married, you have kids and grandchildren. What do you feel personally about Prop 8? Why is it important to you? Or, what's the most important thing about it to you, or why do you feel so strongly about it? Having children, having grandchildren?
I go back to a very simple doctrinal foundation. Marriage between a man and a woman is ordained of God. Sister Bednar and I have 9 grandchildren. 8 of them are little girls and 1 is a little boy. And the greatest joy in life comes in marriage and as children come into your home. And I just simply feel this passionate because for our children, for our grandchildren, and for our grandchildren's children, my desire is that they would have the happiness of the family and marriage between a man and a woman as the central features of the Father's plan. His plan is called the plan of happiness. It's called that for a reason. And if we want to have happiness in mortality, it comes in a variety of ways, but all of those ways focus on and lead to the marriage between a man and a woman, and if they're blessed to have children, the rearing and the nurturing of those children. That's what it's all about. And I don't want that disrupted. I don't want that redefined. I don't want that altered for our children and grandchildren.